Okay, welcome back, everybody. Here we are with the bonus issue for issue 24. And so, like many of the other issues, uh, we're going to go ahead and bounce over to uh, the spreadsheet, and we'll go through all of that, and so that way you guys can see the details. Okay, so let's have a look at what we did in issue 24. So we have a single video, and in this one we did frame and plating. Total time was an hour and 7 minutes. There was 2 captures used for that. Total capture time was 42 minutes and 59 seconds, and the final video was only 26 minutes and 35 seconds. We used 32 screws for this. We glued one piece on. Um, Here we can see our video time here and the details of that. And then in this one, we can see that the first capture was 33 minutes and 26 seconds. That was when I was going through and actually attaching all of the framework. And then we have the second capture was 9 minutes and 33 seconds, and that's when we were talking about the plating and I glued on the parts and all that kind of stuff. And I did an extra 25 minutes of off-camera work, and that involved cutting the piece out of the sprue, sanding it off, attaching all the plating, finding all the plating, all that kind of stuff. So all of that got added up to 25 minutes. So now if we look at our overall, we're now over 22 hours of total video time, almost 70 and a half hours of total build time, and our average video time is coming down to 32 minutes and 37 seconds, which is kind of where I'd like it to be, getting closer to where I need it to be. We've used 153 micro brushes. We use one for gluing, and we've done a total of 141 screws and 372 glued on pieces. And we've got a total of 41 build videos. So there you go. That's the breakdown for this issue. So let's get back to reviewing the content in the magazine. Okay, again, hopefully you guys are enjoying that little bit of extra detail that I'm adding in there. Hopefully it serves some purpose. So before we get started, I want to acknowledge the fact that I actually uploaded my videos out of order. If anybody's paying attention, I uploaded issue 24 instead of issue 23. And so this was a big snafu. I'd actually already scheduled issue 24. I completely forgot to upload issue 23. And so when I got home from work, I kind of panicked and I got it up. I went in and uploaded, and I uploaded the wrong video. So you guys got to see me doing the framework from this issue, and so hopefully that is going to be helpful and useful for you. But we all know that that's not the correct thing that we should be doing. So I'm actually just looking at the framework that I did, and the last rib piece that I put on, I put the bracket in the middle upside down, so I'll have to flip that around. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. So this time we're going to talk about the Mon Calamari Star Cruiser, and its type is an MC-80 cruiser. Mon Cala Orbital Shipyards is where it was designed and built. It's got a megalight of 60, a crew of 5,400, passengers of 1,200, cargo of 20 tons. It carries enough consumables for 2 years of spaceflight. Its length is 1,200 meters on average. It's got class 1, so it's faster than a Star Destroyer. Star Destroyer is class 2. Class 1 would be faster, but it's only got class 9 backup. It comes with 48 turbo laser batteries, 20 ion cannons, and 6 tractor beam projectors. So I thought this was extremely interesting. So Um, so, although the Mon Calamari are known as a gentle species for spacefaring explorers, they are also known to wage war if there is no option left. The Empire's occupation of Mon Cala was thwarted when the Mon Calamari and the Quarren joined forces and destroyed the Imperial garrison. One of the consequences of this defeat was that Mon Calamari refitted their Star Cruisers into fully fledged capital warships. Originally built at the majestic Mon Cala orbital shipyards as civilian and exploration vessels, some Mon Calamari cruisers were already outfitted with military shields and squadrons of starfighters. These first refitted cruisers served as the local defense force of Mon Cala system and its colonies. During the Imperial invasion of Mon Cala, only a handful of these cruisers escaped and joined the Rebel Alliance. One of these ships was the Independence, which served for some time as the Alliance's main space-going headquarters. During the Imperial occupation, the shipyards constructed luxury liners such as the Quarry Princess, and when the Mon Calamari and the Quarren finalized their secret rearmament program, the Empire was defeated and driven away. Never did the Empire realize that they had helped to build more Mon Calamari Star Cruiser warships. The sturdy, over-engineered exploration and luxury cruisers were perfectly suited for war, which had always been a possibility in the original designer's plan. Numerous water-filled passages, which enabled Mon Calamari to swim to different areas of the ship, were drained and retrofitted with floors and ventilation systems. Thousands of viewports were plated, and standard weapon emplacements were replaced by heavy weaponry to create heavily armed and shielded MC-80 cruisers. These became the most powerful ships in the Rebel Alliance fleet. So they were the most powerful and probably the biggest, but sounds like they pretty much dwarfed. They were dwarfed by the Star Destroyer, so it's important to note. Different cruiser types. Although no two MC-80s are exactly similar, two main types can be identified: the standard winged Liberty type and the slightly tougher and more heavily armed Home 1 type, also known as the MC-80A. Nearly all MC-80s look like they have somehow grown organically. Each elegant and versatile design meets the Mon Calamari standard for efficiency, standard strength, and aesthetic appeal. So I thought this was extremely interesting because you don't hear a lot about these Mon Calamari things. Um, Starfighter Wing and MC-80 carries a full wing of 36 fighters, consisting of 3 squadrons of different starfighter types, one of which functions as a recon squadron. The wing commander reports both to the ship's captain and the fleet fighter command. A Star Destroyer carries twice as many starfighters, but 72 firefighters are usually inferior to half that number of Alliance starfighters, which is outfitted with reflector shields and more powerful weapons. This enables the MC-80 to participate in missions from a distance, functioning as heavily armed starfighter carrier. The crewmen, MC-80 command crews are mostly made up of Mon Calamari, as the holo displays and battle graphics are designed for their visual spectrum. The control stations even require body movements that other species can hardly emulate, as the Battle of Endor Home 1 was commanded by Captain Varric, First Officer Thanesby, and Lieutenant Sesfin. And of course, this is Mon Calamari. This would be this is probably Akbar. I don't know. Um, the cruisers do cause consternation from time to time for Alliance technicians who aren't always familiar with the specific design. The standard MC-80 is armed with 48 turbo lasers, 20 ion cannons, and 36 starfighters. The bulbous and modular pods on the hull of the MC-80 can house different systems or emplacements such as deflector shields, sensors, ion cannons, or turbo lasers. The MC-80 doesn't match the raw firepower of an Imperial-class Star Destroyer, but it possesses several tactical advantages. The MC-80 usually doesn't engage a Star Destroyer in direct combat, since its starfighters can win a battle with the MC-80, while the MC-80 participates from a distance. Beside the better agility and superior starfighters, the MC-80 also has highly advanced backup and overlapping shield generators known as the SEAL shield system. Built by Serage, the generators of this system recharge at twice the normal rate, and therefore the ships become less vulnerable to enemy fire. A powerful asset. Initially, the Empire underestimated the power of the MC-80s, but they soon learned that they had become a powerful asset to the Rebel Alliance fleet. The Rebel Alliance didn't possess as many MC-80s as the Imperial Empire had Star Destroyers, but their presence helped turn the tide of the Galactic War. That's pretty important. So this is just basically talking about Admiral Ackbar. So I told you we'd probably talk about him a little bit. He commanded the entire fleet from Home One, the Independence, the Defiance, and the Liberty. As Lion Strike team hadn't been able to take down the shield generator, the main attack was halted while the Imperials awaited orders. The Alliance starfighters and capital ships joined battle with innumerable TIE fighters, although the Liberty was utterly destroyed by the Star Destroyer's super laser. So that's the one that got killed by the super laser. The Alliance kept up the pressure until the Death Star shields came down and was deactivated, and General Calrissian blew it up. A little bit of behind the scenes here. Conceptual designers Joe Johnston and Neil Rodis Jamaro designed the Mon Calamari cruisers as more streamlined starships to contrast them against the angular shapes of the Imperial ships. Because of their bulbous pods, the cruisers were nicknamed pickle ships by the ILM crew. Although several cruisers can be seen in Return of the Jedi, ILM only constructed one actual model of each type. Their unique design prevented the model maker from using their kit bashing technique, wherein they used various other model kits as sources for parts. The parts of the Mon Calamari cruisers were manufactured from scratch at ILM itself. During production, Home One was also known as Headquarters Frigate. The bulbous shapes that led to the Star Cruisers being called pickle ships were vacuum formed. For simplicity, the ships were lit by internal neon lights with holes drilled in the surface to act as windows. So there you go. There's that little tidbit. And now we're going to talk about Theed, Naboo's capital city. So we've talked about Naboo before. So it only has one sun. It's in the third orbital position. It's on the Inarc trade route, the old Trade Federation route, and is 34,000 light years from the core. So Theed, obviously it's the capital city. This is the city that we saw in particularly the prequels, and they added a scene in Return of the Jedi after the Emperor was killed. So I'm not going to go through a lot of this, but I am going to touch on some of it. So it was founded 800 years before the invasion of Naboo, so the city is 800 years old, and so I thought that was rather interesting. It was ruled, the Naboo were ruled by a series of monarchs, and the first several they talk about were kings. I'm not sure when they switched to having queens, so like Queen Amidala, and I mean, from what I can remember, they kind of talked about the queens before her. But this talks about several of the kings, which I thought was interesting. So, where was it? The Plaza. A recent addition to Theed was the Grand Plaza, a large public square built over a part of the city that was severely bombed during the invasion of the Trade Federation. The plaza, which is over 600 meters wide, features walkways and circular colonnade where friezes of great philosophers and artists were proudly displayed. Its design is a perfect circle, symbolizing the equality of the Naboo people and the reminder of what the monarch is sworn to protect. So that was pretty cool. It just kind of tells you a little bit about the construction of different things. It talks about the Theed hangar and all of that kind of stuff. It talks about the plasma refinery complex, which is where Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon fought Darth Maul. Besides the government function, Theed is a supreme center of culture and learning. Students can take classes at the Theed University or at the Royal House of Learning, while important young leaders of the Naboo are groomed at the Royal Academy. Other buildings that feature in every tourist guide are the Parnelli Museum of Art, the Concert Hall, the Ellie Arcadium, the Hall of Peritica, Queen Yarm's Needle, the banqueting rotunda built by the Earl of Vis, and Guido's Tower. One of Theed's oldest buildings, this is found in Broadberry Meadow, a secluded garden only reachable by boat, since the streets of Theed are constructed around the branches of the Solu's mouth. The city also features a lot of bridges, known as Bassa Bridge and the famous Pergolas Bridge. So yeah, it just kind of gives some generic information about uh, Theed and that kind of stuff. This kind of stuff to me I don't find terribly interesting. If you guys find it more interesting, let me know, and I'll definitely kind of drive into it a little bit more. One of the things I thought was interesting was this talks about the space hangar. You can see this one in Attack of the Clones, but uh, this space hangar here was actually built as part of the reparations. So, reparation money from the Republic donated after the planet's liberation from the Trade Federation would allow the citizens of Theed to develop projects such as the Theed Spaceport and the Grand Plaza. So we already talked about the Grand Plaza. Now we talked about the spaceport. So this spaceport was built after that with the money that they got as reparations um, from the Republic. So, and as we all know, Supreme Chancellor, which was Palpatine, he had been a senator, and then he got moved to be the Supreme Chancellor, and then of course uh, uh, Amidala, Padme Amidala, she went from queen to being a senator. So both of those people, probably helped influence getting the reparation money uh, to Naboo. Of course, I don't know. Maybe it was fairly common in those days to do that kind of thing. The spaceport was a welcome necessity to cope with expanding tourism and growing waves of refugees in the decade before the Clone Wars. So a little bit more behind the scenes action. So the Lucasfilm Archive is known to hold more than 50 plans of Theed, as rapid advances in visual effect technique during the filming of the prequels allowed the combination of physical sets and digital enhancements. A mixture of these appear in the movies. Theed Plaza was the largest exterior set for The Phantom Menace, with about 40 buildings created to fill backgrounds rearranged um, depending on the angle of the shot. For Attack of the Clones, Theed's Grand Plaza was filmed at the Plaza de España in Seville, Spain. A Digimat painting of Theed appeared in Revenge of the Sith. It was to have been omitted, but George Lucas put it back. A shot of celebrating citizens in Theed was added to the DVD of Return of the Jedi. So yeah, so you get to see that in Return of the Jedi. Let's go on to our Secrets of Spaceflight, Starship Medical Facilities. So this basically starts off talking about how basically the CEC didn't really know much about like the best way to add medical facilities to the YT 1300 because there was such a wide variety of species that could be using it. It could be, done by droids. It could be actually um, automated. So they didn't really want to put one in. They didn't see the need. They felt like if that was something you wanted, you could add that after the fact. Because then they also, they'd have to have way too many variants. So basically, it was just equipped with med packs and that kind of thing. So uh, the med packs were pretty helpful though, but they could only get you so far. Uh, or was it? I was going to try to point out where it said the med packs. Oh well. Um, yeah, and then another option would have been if it was captained by droids, then should they have droid maintenance facilities? So yeah, it's way too many options here. A common compromise aboard many YT-1300s is to install an all-purpose back-to-tank that can heal all but the most serious wounds. The Zalton E9 back-to-tank offered by authorized dealers is an optional extra that can stand in the crew corners, taking up little more space than an adult human. The cylindrical tank is filled almost to the top with a clear synthetic fluid that mimics the body's own vital fluids, and an injured patient is lowered into the tank, and translucent red Bacta gel is then added to the solution to form a bacterial medium that seeks out traumatized flesh and heals the wound with no scarring. The fluids necessary to run a Bacta tank are sold separately by numerous dealers. The Falcon's medical bed, or med bed, as they're calling it here. In the case of the Millennium Falcon, the ship's logs do not record what, if any, medical facilities were installed by the manufacturer beyond the most basic first aid equipment and emergency provisions. But Han Solo and Chewbacca knew that the risks when they begun their smuggling operation. It was a game in which people got hurt. Lethal force could be used by both smuggling rivals and the Imperial Navy, whose mission it was to patrol the space lanes and stop the invasion of Imperial levies and uh, stop the evasion of Imperial levies and taxes. When the pair joined the Rebel Alliance, the risks of getting hurt or killed were greatly magnified. To deal with likely emergencies, the Corellian smuggler and his Wookiee co-pilot had chosen to convert one of the three bunks in the crew quarters after the port docking ring inside a med bed. Inside, or excuse me, let me. Holy crap! Sometimes I tell you, after the port docking ring into a med bed. This is accomplished by adding a metascan unit to the bunk, which was the next best thing to having a doctor or medical droid aboard the ship. Parts of the Scavenge Late model Athcom 2 med unit, capable of diagnosing and treating a variety of simple and more complicated conditions, were rigged up solo style above the bunk. The equipment had an input panel, a small heads-up display, and for practical reasons, articulated robotic limbs. So filming the back-to-tank scene in The Empire Strikes Back was filmed on Stage 1 of the Elstree Studios in the middle of March 1979. For the scene in which the Wampa ravaged Luke Skywalker's rejuvenated actor Mark Hamill, who played the young Jedi, was lowered into the specially built Perspex tank containing 1,800 liters of chlorinated water. The tubular tank, the largest of its kind at the time, was built by the British Aircraft Corporation, also known as British Aerospace, at Weybridge, Surrey, from the same material used for pressurized aircraft cockpits. The tube was lit by an Army searchlight whose beam was reflected by a mirror suspended above it. Hamill escaped serious injury twice by being absent from the tank when heat from the light shattered the mirror, causing shards to come crashing into the water. The scene was written to explain the facial injuries Hamill suffered in a real car accident after making the first Star Wars film, and includes full-size medical droids 2, 1B, and FX7. So it talks about the searchlight actually shattered the mirror because it was hot. I can tell you, even though they were pretty much being phased out, I was trained on searchlights to repair searchlights in the Army, and the light from a searchlight is brighter than the sun, and it will actually blister your skin. It's so bright and creates so much heat. And so, yeah, it doesn't surprise me that it actually shattered the mirror. I thought that was so cool because I actually had knowledge of that, so or at least of what searchlights were capable of. This makeshift, still talking about the med bed in the Falcon, makeshift med bed would scan the patient's physiology to discover his or her planet of origin and age. It would then use that information to analyze the patient for injuries and illness for which it could devise suitable treatments. The medbed would prove invaluable for stabilizing Luke Skywalker after he lost his right hand in a lightsaber duel with Darth Vader on Bespin Cloud City. Medical droids. On hazardous missions where injury is likely outcome, there is also a choice of taking along doctors or medical droids, which are the normal provision on hospital ships. The two particular models were favored by the Rebel Alliance, the 21B Surgeon Droid and the FX-7 Medical Assistant. The Surgeon Droid had soft, lilting voice and is programmed with a gentle bedside manner designed to reassure patients. He has a gentle touch despite his metallic claw-like hands, thanks to an ultra-precision hydraulic system controlled by internal fluids kept at various temperatures. The FX-7 Assistant has a dozen manipulative arms, which means it can perform many functions at once during medical procedures. Some of the arms have specific functions such as bioelectric sensor, the pH testing, pressure testing, and temperature sensing, to name a few. Together, surgeon and assistant make a formidable medical team. So, this is obviously the surgeon droid, and that is obviously the assistant droid. And this just talks about how, um, here this talks about how uh, Anakin or Vader by this time, was stabilized with medical droids on his way back to Coruscant after the Emperor went and got him. So, yeah, so there you go. That is all about the secrets of spaceflight and the medical stuff. And the last little bit here is while the Falcon's steel frame was made at Pembroke Dock, workers were sworn to secrecy over the project codenamed the Magic Roundabout. The workshop doors were kept shut and photographs or unauthorized visits were banned. But in March 2015, it was finally revealed that amateur photographer John Clark had managed to snap pictures of the ship as it is nearing completion. So, let's see if we can get this up there. I really need to fix this. There we go. So, as you can tell, it looks very similar to the framework that we're putting together, right? It's, um, you know, these ribs are a bit thicker, but the kind of the format and the construction is very similar. Actually, that's pretty cool. So that is the end of issue 24. And again, somehow I put them out of order, which is fine because the good thing was that this was all about the framework, and we didn't talk about the corridor, and we didn't do anything with the corridor in issue 24. So you guys can see the conclusion of the corridor next week when I do issue 23. And I promise you, after that, we will move on with issue 25 in the proper order. Somehow, I just don't know how I was completely blew off uploading a video and then panicked and uploaded the wrong one. So, but everything will be right in after next week, and we'll be able to move on with our lives and all that kind of stuff. So, hopefully, you guys are enjoying this, and I want to thank you all for watching, and may the force be with you always.